Destination Banter with Tony Smith.
Fraser, welcome back to the studio. And we're joined in the studio today with the lovely Joanne Callan. How are you doing, Joanne?
Great, Tony. How are you?
Thanks for coming into the studio.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
It's warm in here.
It is indeed.
Isn't it?
Very warm.
Well,
but it's a beautiful day.
It's a beautiful day outside. I have to say, it's beautiful here in Ireland. Lovely sunny day, which is a rare occasion. But I'm wearing my black flag t-shirts, my stickers on the hat. It's that time of the day. Look at that. Woohoo! Matthew T. Metzler, thanks very much. I've got Breaking Bad actor. I've got my t-shirts. Really appreciate them. I couldn't wear the red ones in. You know what I'm talking about. You know, it could be a bit of controversy going on with the red ones, but I love these ones. Thanks very much. And a big shout out to Black Flag, American punk band, on their North American tour. So there you go.
Yes, and the world becomes a smaller place, doesn't it?
It does indeed. And it's great. It's now with viewers in America.
Yeah.
You know, and Russia.
Yeah.
Australia. We're all around the globe,
Yeah.
Joanne, you know.
Yeah.
And your show's getting good reviews too, you know.
Great reviews. The show that I do is around holistic health and well-being. And so like that, you know, there's no geographical limits to that. That affects everybody, no matter where they are. And albeit that a lot of the guests would maybe be local Northern Irish therapists and things like that, but the information that we're sharing is relevant to everybody. And we would always say, you know, if the particular therapist deals with a particular therapy that you would be interested in, there's likely to be somebody close to where you are, wherever you are. So yeah, no, it's going great. It's been going since last September, so
yeah. And Joanne, you're into the more or less the alternative now. You're not tablets.
Yeah.
You're not into the normal run-of-the-mill medicines.
Yeah, my the name of my company is Try the Alternative, and I suppose people often, I get a bit of grief from my peers with that one, because there's the thought that alternative well-being is actually normal well-being, and it's what has been about for thousands and thousands and thousands of years before we embraced Western medicine. But my perspective from where I came with Try the Alternative was the heal, when the name came together. So the HE of the and the alternative of alternative, the AL, was the alternative. But it's more, I suppose, really to look at what is the alternative to ill health. I would be of the opinion that we have a place for the medical world, and of course, if anybody is feeling unwell or not comfortable, concerned about their health or that, then of course their GP is the first port of call. But there's an awful lot that we can do from a prevention is better than cure approach, and integrating a holistic approach to healthcare would be my passion. And by holistic, I mean looking at what the emotional causes are, what the physical causes are, and how can a person look at their lifestyle and look at maybe even things that has happened to them throughout their lives that they maybe have buried, haven't dealt with, and then it manifests in some form in a physical illness or in a block in some aspects of their lives, either where maybe they just feel like they're banging their head up against a brick wall and they can't progress past stuff. So that's the... So
in other words, maybe if there's something you're trying to hide from yourself, and it turns into a negative process from your, because negative thoughts can manifest into ill health, can't they?
I suppose I wouldn't necessarily even use the word negative thoughts, because they're thoughts and it's emotions, and it's important that we experience thoughts and emotions, because otherwise we're a bit robotic, and I believe as humans that's part of our journey, is to feel those emotions, but it's how we deal with them maybe, and how, you know, if we allow anger to eat away at us. So you could have the quietest person, the person who's never said a cross word in their lives, but inside they've all of this anger and emotion bubbling up that's maybe eating away at them, and can, through stress, and that's probably the way people become more aware of it, is through the stress that causes to the body, then the body becomes physically affected in that front. But even, I suppose, on all levels, it may be that people don't always do, you know, people maybe say, well, I have a sore leg, and they don't always look at what that might mean emotionally. So generally, as a holistic therapist, you would look at, well, maybe there's restrictions in moving forward in life, and what is it that you're afraid of in the future, and things like that. But and then sometimes people just want to very much be treated very physically as well. So it depends really on the individual.
Yeah.
There's no one solution fits all.
And there's no cure out there to cure everything. Sure, there's not.
No, there's no. There's nothing that. There's no one. Even people will say to me, like, maybe I might have a client who's coming with maybe fertility issues or something like that, and it would be great to just be able to say, well, there's one solution, that's one thing, but that can have so many layers to the actual problem. And a lot of the time now we're maybe seeing people with unexplained fertility, so there's no real reason and nobody can actually give them a reason, so that means that there's even more layers as to where that might come in. But overall, I think for all of us, well, and you can only ever speak, I think everybody's journey comes from their own personal experience, and I know myself when I started taking a holistic approach to my health and well-being, and by that, as I said, I mean looking at it physically, emotionally, and probably spiritually as well, in terms of energetically. So what am I letting in, what am I not, what am I blocking, and all that sort of stuff, that my own health and well-being has improved. But other areas of my life have improved as well. So it's never just about segregating stuff. Whereas we have a very, generally speaking, if somebody has a sore head and they go to the doctor, well, their sore head is treated. Rather than maybe looking at why have they got a sore head. Is it related to their digestion? Is it related to their hormone imbalance? Could it be dehydration? Long-term dehydration? And so there's so many underlying what stress is in their lives, what's giving them a pain in the head.
Yeah.
So
instead of you going, here, there's an Anodin, or there's a headache tablet or whatever, you'll go into it in depth. You investigate it.
Or support. It's probably not even for what I do. It's supporting the individual. But that said, as I said, it's important to remember that if we have serious concerns about our health and well-being, that it's a doctor that we kind of visit first of all, and there may be a place for the Anodin, and there may be a place, but long term, and obviously there's other brands of painkillers and things out there as well, but I would be of the belief that if there's something not right in the body, it's telling you to change something rather than just mask it over.
That's a good approach. I like that one. That's different now. I like that.
It's a different way of looking at it. But if your body is out of balance, your body's designed to be healthy and well. That's how it's meant to be. Like if the vast majority of us cut ourselves within seconds, that cut, first of all, it'll bleed. The bleeding will stop. There's certain things we can do. We can apply pressure and different things like that. But generally speaking, the bleeding will stop. The skin will start to knit together, the antibodies will flood the area to make sure that any infection that might get in is and that all happens without us having to do anything. Yeah. We don't even have to think about that. That just happens. So my beliefs would be that same intelligence that knows how to heal your body when it cuts itself knows how to figure out the rest of it. We just need to support it better.
Because our skin is completely, it's amazing, isn't it?
It's phenomenal.
When you think of it, it's waterproof for a start.
Yeah.
It breathes.
Yeah. It's the most amazing tech. Like if a material manufacturer was trying to create a perfect material, skin is the perfect.
That's the one, isn't it?
Material. Like,
leather's not even as good as skin.
No, it renews itself.
It heals itself.
It heals itself. It changes. Like if we're all running about now with a wee bit of suntan. If the sun doesn't continue, give it a couple of weeks and that suntan's gone. We've all done the holiday in the sun, which proves to us that the body is constantly renewing itself. It's never staying stagnant. It is never just as it is today. It's always moving. Can
you tell me, Joanne, how you get into the whole holistic healing approach?
I suppose I think for myself, it's something that my first memory is of using aromatherapy oils to do my 11 plus. So It's been something kind of right the whole way back. I remember taking like sunflower seeds to school and people thinking that I was like slagging me because there was a bird and stuff like that. So I would have to say it was at home. It was very much an approach that was taken at home. Although I probably didn't realise it was any different to what anybody else was doing for many years, because it was just, that was it. Like our sort of lavender oil would have been the first port of call if there was ever anything wrong at home. And but generally speaking, I'm saying that, and thankfully myself, my brother and sister were all quite healthy children.
Yeah.
You know, I don't really remember any of us being sick. But again, I would have friends now who would say to me, but sure, why do you do such and such? Because you're never sick. And I'm like, well, that's why I do it. Prevention's better than cure.
Only in the Banter show, friends. You've heard it live here. This makes a lot of sense, and I love a bit of banter that makes a load of sense. You know, and this is why I wanted you in to see what's going on in this lady's head.
I suppose on my show, a lot of the conversations coming from the guest. It's not always my own views and my own thoughts. So it's always been a part of my life, and I have never really known it not to be. And then I worked. I had a coffee shop. I opened it at 19. Well, I studied food science, and I suppose I think I do believe the core element of health is food.
It's what you put in.
Yeah, we are what we eat. I know, full of cliches today. Prevention's better than cure. We are what we eat, but we are. And if we're not supporting our bodies in the right way towards good health, then you know we're going to suffer. They're only like. And again, it's another analogy that's used regularly, but I always think the old ones are the best, and why reinvent the wheels as such. But if people are, you know, if we take our car and we put the right fuel in it and we service it and we look after it, we do more for our cars than we do for our bodies. Indeed. A lot of the time.
Indeed.
Although I do think that's changing. I think people are realising that, you know, we're likely to be here for...
Sorry, Joe.
You're all right. That we're likely to be here for... You know, most of us who are alive are likely to be here till we're over 100. You know, we'll be alive in one way, shape or form. We'll be kept alive. And
as you know, we're living longer, aren't we?
We are. Well, yeah, there's a chain of thought. We certainly are living longer, although there is, I suppose, thought that that years ago, maybe statistics were the average age of a lifespan probably was altered due to the large number of infant deaths, where babies died very young. And thankfully, although not in all cases, but that's something that we've made significant improvements in. So therefore, the general average is extended. But in all, by, you know, with the advances in medical science, we probably will live a lot longer. Physically, live by breathing and stuff like that. Whether we're actually living, and the quality of that life, I believe, depends on us as individuals, and what choices we make.
And it's a lot to do with that there too, your outlook on life, isn't it?
Your emotional well-being as well, and how people look after that too, because we have, you know, there's so many different things that have happened to people in different aspects of their life. There's ancestral stuff, there's so many layers to what makes us who we are, and to where our beliefs come from and where our outlook and things come from, and it's not just as often always as simple as what we look at. But so as I say, I studied initially food science and looked at got a real understanding of food, and then I opened a coffee shop and I ran it for 3 years, and then I went to England to work for a chain of coffee shops, and in that time I spent a lot of time in hotels, and I probably done quite a bit of soul searching myself and a lot of reading and because you had every evening in a hotel and you filled it with something that was different than work. And prior to going to England, as I suppose as a hobby, I had kind of decided I would study reflexology. I was interested in it and always thought that's something that I'll do sort of further down the line. And my initial case studies reported really great benefits from what they were doing, what the results that they were getting and things like that. So that's where the path really took me, and how I got onto it, and then it has evolved from that really. So it's,
so where was the coffee shop? Where did you?
Francis Street in Newry.
In Newry?
Yeah.
And where was that,
Joanne? God, it's a few years ago now. I was 19, so 13.
That was only 3 years,
only
no
3
friends.
years, yeah. Last year something.
20 quid, Joanne.
Yeah. Yeah. So and I'm 33 now. So 14 years ago. And believe it or believe it not, we were probably one of the first in Newry to do wraps. And
wow.
I mean, when you think of it now, paninis, there was nobody doing paninis.
And
I was one of the
you
first to
wouldn't-
do
nobody
paninis.
knew what they were.
Nobody even knew what they were. Like, I was selling them, and people were going, "Oh yeah, they're nice." And
Why is
and
Joanne
then-
talking Italian? No?
Yeah, within, I suppose, a very quick space of time, maybe 2 to 3 months, then some of the other local businesses, you know, obviously they became on board. But we were one of the first to do wraps and paninis and all of this sort of.
There you go,
More
friend.
end of bread, so.
There you go now. I was
There you
unaware of
go,
that one.
first. That's yeah, it's so. But the path, and I suppose that's maybe even where I got interested in people as well, and what made people tick, and because obviously in a coffee shop you spend a lot of time getting to know your regulars, and you realise that you know you can observe people over, I suppose, if you're interested, but you can see how moods can change and things can turn. You know, somebody could be in best of form today and they're very open and they're very chatty, and maybe tomorrow something has happened and they're just not as
standoffish.
Yeah, you know, and it's not that the person is good or bad or whatever. It's just that something has happened and that has changed. So we can sometimes meet people and think, God, I don't like that, but maybe we've just met them on a day where we don't click with them because of what's going on in their lives and things like that as well. So
well, that's a good. I tell you what, you had a coffee shop when there wasn't too many coffee shops in this town.
There definitely wasn't. No, I think again I was probably
one of the first. Was it?
Yeah, and I think I was probably one of the first to have a proper espresso machine as well. And
but,
you know, when you look at now how things have changed so much, and to even say that to people sounds like, no, sure, that has always been the case. We've always had and you're like, no, we didn't.
No, we didn't. No,
I mean, I opened in the Christmas of 1998. So, but you know, the whole thing has just changed so dramatically in the last.
And funny now, there's
13 years.
So you started a coffee shop, and you know you're watching people coming into a shop, and you can maybe see people coming in a bit drained or whatever, and then you've seen it happening because you get the coffee in, and what do? You get perked up.
Yeah, and you can see where that, and I suppose that for me as well was an interesting angle because and people, it's probably not until now that I've recognised it, but again, I never drank alcohol. I don't drink tea or coffee, which is a surprising one. And I would never have been a big one for medicines or anything like that. And you sometimes think, you know, people look through life and they think, how did you know, you have different things that happen and all the stuff that happen. And a lot of our normal things that we turn to are maybe drugs or alcohol, or a lot of young people will turn to those as escapism as such, or maybe turn even to prescribed medicines to help through different patches in life, or even just the quick fix, as you say, the cup of coffee that lifts you and gets you through, and you know, that carries you on. And for me, I suppose my journey took me that I developed, whilst it may have been with a challenge to the people around me at some times, and I'm sure it was, because there's none of us can go through life perfect, and there's none of us that can don't upset or annoy people around us, particularly those closest to us. But that path, I feel, and the path that I've taken, and hopefully the path that I'm supporting others on now, helped me to develop that resilience in myself, so that my health and well-being and my mood and all of those things were dependent on me and sort of, I suppose, natural remedies, and there's people would say coffee and things are natural as well, so they are, but you know, maybe using aromatherapy oils and having regular reflexology and things like that built me up as an individual, rather
kept
than
you in your comfort zone,
kept me feeling, and you know, I think as well we often look at how it affects other people, but for my part, for me, the most important was that I felt well, and when I think as an individual we feel well, then that translates into how other people feel as well. Well, we're just gonna go. We're taking an ad break here. Our studio manager Ryan's after giving me the big ad break. So we'll be back in a second, friends. Don't go anywhere.
opportunity here. McCullough is in, and it's in the back of the net, and it's Callan McCullough. Is that Callan McCullough or is it Daggy Carville? Daggy Carville. Daggy Carville.
Nice little offload to Gabriel Smith. Gabriel now the big midfielder. Ryan Malin. Ryan's great ball to McCurry, and he's put it in the onion bag. Ross McCurry, super score.
Try to do in respect of all the decisions that I make. No sorry for everyone.
I'm here today with Mr. Danny Doran and Yuri Mann, originally from the Old Warpoint Road in Yuri.
Very, very big welcome to the Armades. Liv Sinead, Mags and Sean here.
Hi, welcome to Destination Baby. It's a new magazine series brought to you by Destination Yuri.
Raise our friends, we're back, and me and Joanne have been chatting away here in the background, haven't we, Joanne?
Indeed, yes.
We're sorting out the whole, everybody, the whole world's problems. Ill health be gone.
Yeah,
That's
as
what
I
I
say,
say.
if we can all start with sorting out ourselves, then I think the world would be in a better place, wouldn't it? If we can figure out our own, as this talk about even with peace, the Dalai Lama does say if we've a world, if every person in the world focuses on creating peace in themselves, we'll have a world full of peaceful people. And
There you go. That's a good one, yeah.
And it makes so much sense. But we can't, until we're comfortable and at peace with ourselves, then the world is going to be unsettled and whatever. So
Funny, there's a group, Yob Mob, Razor for Yob Mob, out on Twitter there, and they sent me just a few questions. They like to hear your opinions,
Yeah.
and they actually sent me, who would you rather go to dinner with, the Dalai Lama or the Pope? And I just went, get them both in.
Yeah,
get them both in, and I'll have the banter with them. You know what I mean?
See what the story is. Yeah, and they're both. The Dalai Lama is a very, very interesting person as well, and I suppose the Pope maybe hasn't been around long enough for us to know his personality. I think even myself, still, when people say the Pope, I nearly think of Pope John Paul. You forget that there's been another two since, whereas the Dalai Lama has been around for so long.
He's a great man, weathering the storm, isn't he?
Yeah, he definitely is. And
good vibe about him, isn't there?
There's a few weeks ago, we had a project. I was involved in organising an event for children in Crossfire in Uri, and we had it in the Canal Court, and we had Richard Moore, who is the founder of Children in Crossfire. You might have heard of Richard's story. Richard was blinded in Derry.
He was shot.
He was shot and blinded when he was only 10. But the Dalai Lama is actually the patron of Richard's charity, and Richard has taken him to Derry on 2 different occasions, I think. But the Dalai Lama also says about Richard Moore, Richard speaks, or I speak about forgiveness, Richard Moore lives forgiveness.
Wow.
Which is a high accolade to receive.
It is.
From
the Dalai Lama,
yeah.
Big shout out to Richard. You're a great fella, and I admire everything you do. You always work.
He's fantastic. I mean, the night that we had here in Uri, and I'm sure there was some of our viewers maybe were there, because both Rowan and I had both done interviews with Richard a few weeks ago, but that evening in the Canal Court.
Just waving at my cousin there, Kieran.
Waving out the window. But Richard's evening was fantastic. But we had Ryan Cinnamon there as well, and Andrea Begley, and a great night, really great night's entertainment. But fantastic stories from.
And Ryan's another great lad, isn't he?
Amazing.
Big shout out to Ryan Cinnamon and John. I know his dad was in school with his dad, and good friends. You know.
Great. I mean, it really was. It was a very inspiring night, and I think everybody that attended it came away feeling. Hopefully it will inspire, definitely was one of the words that were being used all the time, and just in awe of of how amazing people can be when they overcome adversity. And
that's that. When you think of, I mean, there's when we're talking about antidepressants and we're talking about sleeping tablets and all these things, and there's people can't do without them for maybe hours.
Yeah, and again, that's, you see, one of the things actually that I took away from that night as well was that we have. Some people's challenges in life are more visual or physical. So it's easy for us to walk into a room and to realise quite quickly that Richard's blind, or that Ryan has lost his legs, or that Andrea Begley's blind. Equally as well, there may have been people in that room that night that have mental or emotional challenges going on that nobody can see, but that are every bit as debilitating as the challenge that somebody with a physical challenge is overcoming. And yet, as society, we really don't recognise those as being on a level. We've a long way to come, I feel, and it has come a long way, but I think we've a lot further of a way to go before we break down stigmas around emotional well-being. And I don't even like using the word mental well-being, because I think that even in itself has a negative connotation, because people are frightened of the word mental well-being. But I think our emotional well-being and our physical well-being are so closely interlinked, but the physical is so much more obvious. And people, if somebody came into work into the office here now and said to us, I broke my leg, well, we'd all rally round to try and help them. But if somebody came in and said, I'm emotionally broken, everybody stands back. Nobody knows what to do. We're kind of, whoa, hold on, how do I cope with this? What does this bring up in me that is... And a lot of us aren't able to cope with that statement. Plus, we maybe go away thinking, oh, that person's not wise. Or, there's still that stigma that's attached to it. And yet, very often when people are emotionally broken or challenged or whatever way, that's a scenario, like a broken bone, none of us can fix it. We can help the person physically, but we can't actually fix it because the bone just has to knit and heal itself. Emotional well-being is a bit different. There's a lot that we can do to help people through it, and yet it's the time when we step away, or we have our own preconceived notions as to what that means, or we get frightened or we get scared, in order to step in and to help that individual through what they're going through. And that may be depression, it may be suicide, it may be or suicidal thoughts. It can be anything like that, and that's at a time when people need people.
Exactly.
And yet some of the stigmas prevent people from going in, and we're all human at the end of the day, and we all have the same, a lot of us will have the same reaction. Of course, some people are very lucky to meet people who don't have those stigmas, but and who are able to overcome their own boundaries in order to reach out and help somebody. But there's still a long way to go with that, because sometimes people still have the opinion, "Oh, just shake it off, she'll get over it."
That's a bit of an Irish thing, I think, isn't it?
There's that bit of a notion like, oh, sure, what's wrong with them? Like, what have they got to be depressed about?
Wise yourself up, you'll get over it, for God's sake.
And it doesn't matter what they have or don't have to be depressed about, because none of us can see none of us can feel what somebody else is feeling. And nobody knows what any other individual is feeling, or what they may need in their lives at that time.
Indeed.
And where their emotional well-being's at.
And you can help by the simplest little thing, by lending an ear, just listening.
Just listening,
and being non-judgmental. How are you? What's going on? Are you okay?
Yeah.
And then you can.
Yeah, and even if they're, again, my motto is prevention's better than cure, because if one of the things that's talked about often when we talk about emotional health, maybe depression, suicide, is that reach out and talk to somebody. But if a person is feeling at that stage of their life where that's what they're feeling, they're possibly, and again it's different for everybody, but they're maybe feeling that they're already a burden and that the world would be a better place if they weren't in it. Why then would that person reach out to somebody else?
Exactly.
Because they're already feeling that they're a burden. Whereas I think our approach and should be, and it's not always possible, is just generally to look out for the people around us. Open up open up conversations, talk to people, have a chat. Doesn't have to be about anything deep. If you've a person, maybe for us just to think outside of our own box. We all get caught up in our own lives, and I'm as guilty of that as anybody. But we can get caught up in our own lives, and lives get busy, and we were talking off air just about how, the year has flown and time flies by, and time does go by so quickly. But to remember that people need people, and if there's people in your life that you feel maybe don't have enough comfort and time with other people around them, to just reach out with them and just grab a coffee or go for a walk or do something. Just send them a message to let them know that they're important to you, that
Just
you're thinking
as
about
simple
them.
as that on the mobile.
Simple
even.
as that, just, well, how's your day today? I'm thinking about you. And we're so reluctant to let somebody know. I suppose before I became consciously aware of it, I might have thought about people 10 or 20 times a day, maybe sitting in traffic, and I think, God, I wonder how such and such is. But I maybe never actually done anything about it. I never let that person know that I was thinking about them. Whereas now it's so easy with a text message or with an email or Facebook. It doesn't have to be a long conversation, but it can be enough to just let somebody know that actually your presence in the world matters to me, and it makes a difference, and I hope you're doing well today. And they can then come back and say, well, actually, no, and maybe I'm not. And that's where they maybe have to be honest, and we have to be honest with talking about how we feel. But being in a position to sort of talk about that and say, maybe I'm not feeling so great today, or God, I would love that. I would love the chance to meet up. It would be great, or we'll go to the cinema, or we'll do just something, anything that keeps us in contact with people.
And it sets off a nice positive buzz then, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, we all love people.
Yeah.
And we all love stuff to do, and it's nice to have time to yourself as well, and to have your own space and to be able to do your own thing. But it's generally nice to talk and to meet up with people. And
that reminds me, I'm going to give a mate of mine a shout later on.
Yeah,
You just put something in my head.
Even if once a week we reach out to somebody we haven't heard from in a while, because
just to say hello.
Sometimes the reason we don't hear from people is maybe they are in a not a great place.
And we don't think of that.
We don't think. We think they haven't got in touch. Well, I'm not getting in touch because they haven't got in touch and whatever. And we don't stop to think that maybe the reason that person hasn't got in touch with us is just that
maybe something's wrong, or
maybe they're just not feeling themselves, or they're not totally feeling that they can communicate with the rest of the world. And sometimes the encouragement that they need is just for somebody to say, here, we'll grab a beer, or we'll go for a walk, or are you doing anything next Sunday? There's a show on, would you fancy going to it, or whatever that is. Just something
to interact
and especially when it's that sort of, maybe time has just went by a wee bit too long, and we fall into the trap of thinking, well, no, I'm always the one that makes the effort, or whatever. Just maybe revisit how that feels. We've obviously have to have healthy boundaries for ourselves as well, and if people are abusing and whatever, so there's two sides. But I think so often we kind of just let time drag on, and we don't communicate just maybe as well.
We don't communicate enough then, really.
We've all this communication, and yet we don't really use it.
But then we're communicating in our own heads with ourselves, saying, I might give Johnny a ring, and then I go, oh, sure, he didn't ring me the last time. So it's
and it's been a while. I'm always the one that does the ringing or whatever.
We're toying with our own brains. Instead of toying with our own brain, give some of your long lost friends a ring there and say hello.
Somebody you haven't heard from in a while, and just check in with them and see how they're doing.
That's a good one.
Or think about even somebody that you might know. It might be somebody you work with. It might be somebody that maybe isn't the person coming in on a Monday saying, I was out at the weekend and I was doing X, Y and Z. There could be somebody who finishes work on a Monday evening or on a Friday evening and goes home and might not see another person until Monday morning.
That's a long weekend, isn't it?
It's a long weekend, and it's maybe circumstances. It may be that maybe a lot of their friends are married, or maybe they're single and friends are married, and everybody's in different lifestyles and different things. But they could finish up on a Friday, and everybody in the office on the Friday is buzzing about the buzz of the weekend and doing this, that, and the other. But if there's somebody who maybe regularly comes in on a Monday morning, well, what did you do at the weekend? Oh, I didn't really do too much. Maybe just check in and see how that person is.
Yeah, what did you really do at the weekend? And then I've done nothing. I was sitting in the house.
Or just saying, God, you know what we'll do next weekend? I'm going to such and such. why don't you come along?
Yeah.
And just something, because people, a lot of the time, people don't want to admit what's wrong. And that's where I think we, as people around each other, because we can all have it, you know, it's not something that's exclusive.
Yeah.
We've all, I'm sure, had times where life isn't just exactly playing out the way we would like it to be.
You're right, and it's the feel-good factor of interacting with friends, and you know, it can brighten your
and
day.
even just an acquaintance, sometimes it can be just a case of two people who enjoy doing something fairly similar. They don't ever have to get into deep and meaningful conversations either. But it can just be, I like this, you like that, why don't we do something together? Or, you know, there's a group of friends, sometimes maybe, or a couple of people doing something, invite somebody else along who maybe isn't necessarily part of the group, but who, you know, we're all adults, who enjoy doing something just as much. And, you know, if 4 people are going, well, what difference does 5 make, or 6, or whatever? Just, I think we maybe need to go back to those.
Back to them basics,
those basics, yeah.
And just like you're saying there, you know, invite somebody along. Because I love going to something new.
Yeah.
I love doing something new all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that was brilliant. I never thought of it like that. And,
and step out of your comfort zone as well. Maybe take up an invitation, you know, because there's 2 sides. It has to work both ways as well. The person themselves has to be willing to kind of say, well, you know what, that's not really my cup of tea, but like, sure, beat sitting in the house watching the telly or whatever. And we can get into ruts, and we can get into very much a routine and different things. But I think for me, that's an important part of us looking after each other.
Yeah.
As society as a whole, nurturing and supporting
Indeed.
each other.
And do you know what I love, Joanne, I have to say? I mean, I caught up with a load of old friends not this weekend, the weekend previous. And it was his 60th birthday, and with a clay sheet, clay pigeon sheet.
Brilliant.
And you know, I met some great friends that I hadn't seen in a long time.
Yeah.
And what the way my life works anyway is, when I meet somebody I haven't seen in a long time, we just pick up where we left off.
Yeah, we can be very lucky. I think most of us have a core good friendship base.
Yeah.
You know, there's I suppose another chain of thought says the old friends are the best. They're generally people that know you very well. And yeah, you can link up and you can pick up as if you only saw them last week and you mightn't have seen them for 10 years. And then and then there are other people who can come and go in and out of your life, and you can have a relatively good social evening or a social afternoon or whatever. It doesn't get too deep. They might not know you that well, but you can enjoy or appreciate a walk or a chat, or just, you know, you can talk about anything. It doesn't even have to be how anybody's feeling or anything. It could be let's talk about what's in the news today. It could be let's talk about, you know,
the simplest thing in the world, the weather.
The weather. We're great in Ireland for talking about the weather. So what is it to say? If the weather didn't change in Ireland, 90% of people couldn't start a conversation. Because all conversations start with, it's a great day today, it's not a bad day today, whatever. It's always weather. But yeah, it could be anything. And it's interesting how conversation can evolve and things as well. So
funny, I was going up Hill Street yesterday, and it was a nice day. It wasn't, you know, it was a bit sunny today. Yesterday was a bit overcast, but it was
it was still warm and stuff.
Two ladies were talking, and one of them says, I can't stand this heat. I thought, we've only bloody got it. It's only arrived.
It's only arrived, and now we're just wanting to send it back. But yeah, you know, there's always, I think, talking and communication and just reaching out and taking maybe ourselves outside of the box that sometimes we're in. And by that box, I don't mean it from a negative perspective. I just mean the busyness of everyday life.
Well, can I ask you something, Joanne? Yeah, I know you're into try the alternative. The likes of, I just want to ask you about the Reiki healing.
Yeah. Right? Oh, we had controversy last week with the priest in Donegal. Did you hear his story?
I didn't hear that.
He said that anybody that does, well, he didn't actually mention Reiki, but he mentioned yoga, Tai Chi, and possibly Reiki, might have Reiki in there too, should, you know, basically they were just the work of the devil.
Of the devil. You want to try it, you silly old goat. You get a grip of yourself.
And there's lots of priests who do, so there's lots there who are open.
That's it, the Dalai Lama's coming to dinner, not the Pope.
Well, and you know, I mean, again, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But
well, I have an opinion on it, and it's something really strange happened a couple of years ago. My son didn't feel well, and he had a lot of pains here in the chest. We're still waiting on doctor's appointments, put it like that.
Right.
A good friend of mine that lives up in Ravensdale, Razor Shane, And I want you into the show here, Shane, for a chin wag. I knew you'd know this guy,
it's good.
Shane McCollum.
Yeah, I know of the name. I've never met you.
And,
I know him.
and now we were waiting on the appointment. My son went in for appointments here, there, and the doctors, they really, it was getting to here. There are some tablets.
Yeah,
No,
it's not.
the son's a bit like me. He didn't want to. He's not going that avenue.
Yeah.
So I just had mentioned it to Shane one day, and Shane came down and took his desk, his portable desk, and all, and came into the house and told me to leave the sitting room and sat down with the son, and then he talked to him first of all, and then he done his Reiki healing. Now, my son wasn't allowed to tell me what went on.
Yeah,
that's
and particularly that where we were chatting about quite a lot of stuff can be ancestral. It can be different things like that. The father-son relationship.
Tommy Sands is coming in there, sorry.
You're all right. Well, it's the festival Wicked Restraver too.
That's it,
so
yeah.
The
Fiddler's Green's coming up.
Green on. But yes, so yeah, and I can understand totally. That's so important because some of the emotional stuff that might have been going on there could have been related to you, and likely was because parents and children are so closely connected. So,
but what I'm getting at is, my son said, "I've never felt anything like that in my entire life."
Yeah.
The heat coming out of that man's hands, and then going to ice cold, and he could feel his internals moving about.
Yeah,
his internal.
yeah.
Now, this isn't a magic wand or anything, you know. This is healing coming from the hands.
Yeah.
And it's unexplainable. But what I will say, Shane, I'm still grateful to this day, and I really appreciate it because you done something that modern medicine can't do.
Yeah. Well,
So there you are.
and that's what. And Shane will obviously not speaking on his behalf, but speaking on my own behalf as somebody who practices Reiki. What you're doing at that point is activating the body's own ability to heal itself. So, you know, the Reiki energy, Reiki means universal life force energy. That's what the word means. It's a Japanese word. And we all have that. It's not that some of us, like everything else in life, some may choose a lifestyle that supports it so that it's stronger and different things like that. Like, as I said, you know, even I find myself that it's very important that I look after my own health and well-being, that I eat the right foods, that I get sufficient rest, that I have a pretty chemical-free lifestyle. And, you know, so all of that goes on there. And therefore, I think that leaves us more open to being able to support and help others in their healing journey. So Reiki is not something, as you said, it's not a magic wand. It's something that's there, accessible to everybody. There's a name on it. It happens to be a Japanese word, but it's energy, and it's positive energy, and that's what it is. But it's balancing out. The idea of using it as a therapy is to balance out the body's energy centers and to initiate the body's own ability to heal itself. So it's
like
not that
pushing the reset button then.
Yeah, pushing the reset button, balancing those. And again, people will say, well, you know, energy centers, they're again, I suppose the Eastern medicine or the Eastern terms for them would be chakra points. But we've all felt, when we felt an emotion, maybe grief or sadness or something like that, very often you can feel it in your throat. And you nearly feel yourself choking, or you have a lump in your throat. Such a common terminology that people will use.
Yeah.
When there's a deep emotional experience and we get this lump
You're
in our
choked
throat.
up then.
And you're choked up. It's not physical. There's nothing physically there. If you were to put your fingers down your throat, you're not going to remove anything.
Yeah.
But for all intents and purposes, it feels so physical. But it's an emotional lump of energy, and it can be painful. It can get really quite sore.
And then you can get worried about it then.
And then, but it usually, the lump in our throat one is usually quite a quick one. We usually get it, experience it very quickly, maybe at a funeral or when we've read a sad story or we're angry or something like that, and we get that lump, that emotional lump in our throat, which a lot of us will then either cry and release it, or we'll swallow it back down again, and we swallow that emotion and that energy that's trapped in the body, basically. And we trap it back in. What, again, without knowing and not being there, what your son was possibly experiencing was a magnified effect of that in his chest. Something had triggered, something had come up, and it can be very simple things. It doesn't even have to be major things that had caused a tightening of emotion in his chest. And again, we often hear people talking about get that off your chest.
Only in the Banter show, friends. There you go.
It's not, it's not rocket science. It's get it off your chest, let it out, don't swallow it down. And for me, personally, that's one of the things that Reiki is very good at doing, is helping that balancing of energy and emotions.
But it's what amazed me was how the healing could go from hot
to cold,
to cold, to ice cold. I mean, he said the heat. First of all, he couldn't believe so much heat and energy.
Yeah.
So Shane, you're an energy master. I have to get. And I do want you in for the banter. I want to talk about music and bands and everything.
Also, loads of conversation, but
there are so many amazing healing alternative medicines nowadays, aren't there?
and I suppose probably the complementary would probably be the word that, or holistic would be the more common word to use, and there are loads, but they all come, for me it's as much about finding the right person as finding the right therapy. I think the therapy is important, but I also believe that they're all coming from the same thing, basically. So you've a lot of energy things. There's Jinsen Jitsu, there's Reiki, there's maybe bioenergy, there's craniosacral therapy. There's lots of energy modalities. There's some then that are more physical, and then there's like maybe homeopathy, aromatherapy, things like that are different. But generally speaking, like anything in life, if you can find a therapist that you relate to, then I think that's half the battle. Like that's where you're going to make the connection. You could go to Reiki to 3 or 4 different people and connect with the 4th person. You could try reflexology. You may like how one person does it. You may not like how somebody else does it. So there's such, to me it's more about the person, and that's one of the things that I loved about having the opportunity to do Destination Wellbeing, was that I think through camera you can get a good feel of an individual and how they chat, and that breaks down some of the boundaries that people might have. Obviously, people are choosing to go for therapy, they are paying for it, because we haven't yet got to the stage where the NHS will pay for it, but they're paying for it, so they want to make sure that they enjoy it and that they're going to get something from it, but they can be a bit worried about, well, what if I go and I get nothing from that? Whereas to check out some of the videos on Destination Wellbeing and look at some of our therapists that we have on there, gives you an opportunity, well, yeah, I think I like that person, or no, I don't, and that's a good viewpoint.
Yeah, so do check out Destination Wellbeing, and we're only after getting the time. It's a good job looking around the studio manager, Big Ryan there's have to give me the time out.
Yeah.
But Joanne, it's been enjoyed the banter there.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
great to have you on. Unfortunately, cut short, but I'm sure we've sowed enough seeds out there.
Oh yes, but I'd like to continue at some other stage. Now we'll get you back in again, because I like the delving into the deep, so to speak. Yeah. So friends, a big shout out. Thanks again, Matthew T. Metzler. I'm wearing the T-shirt. I'm going to hand some of them out to close friends. So listen, friends, unfortunately we've got that. Big thanks to Ryan, our studio manager. Thank you so much to Joanne.
Thank you, Tony.
Pleasure having you in the studio today.
Great to be here.
So friends, that's it basically from me and Joanne. Will you give them a razor, Joanne?
Will you? We'll go. Right.
Razor.
Right.
2 on the right, 1 on the left. Razor. We're out of here.